Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the EzeeLinux show. This is version 18.16, recorded April the 9th, 2018. I'm Joe Collins, and we got a lot to talk about in this particular show. We're going to talk about what's going on in the news with Facebook, also some exciting news for the EzeeLinux community, got some mainstream media exposure recently, and we are going to talk about configuration files, where they are and how you can find them and how you can manipulate them to make your system do your bidding. We'll talk a bit about that at the end of the video. First thing I want to get into is a controversy that is currently going on, and if you have not been living under a rock, you've probably already heard that Facebook is under fire for selling a bunch of data to an analytics firm in England. And this has prompted demands that Mark Zuckerberg appear before Parliament in the UK, and tomorrow he is going to be appearing before Congress in the United States. And he can't weasel out of this one, because in the United States, if Congress says, we need you to come talk to us, and you don't go, they will find you in contempt of Congress. And that's a very bad thing. Now, this whole controversy has brought a lot of light to the subject of privacy. And of course, in the Linux community, this is a drum that we've been beating for 10, 15, 20 years now, is that we don't like it that a lot of these big companies are sucking data from their users and then doing all kinds of nefarious things with it. And it goes beyond Facebook. It goes into Google. It goes into what Microsoft is doing with their Windows operating system, and Android, which is a Google product, and Apple, and pretty much any large company that you have to deal with on the internet that offers you a free service. Well, it's not really free, because you are the product and they are using your data to sell to advertisers and anybody who will buy it. And while, like I said, we've been talking about this in the Linux community for a long time, I think this is the first time that I have ever used a web page that was totally mainstream as a backdrop for a talk. We're looking at the Washington Post's story about this on their web page. And for those of you who are outside of the US, the Washington Post is one of the most well-respected newspapers in this country. And what they say carries a lot of clout. So this is their lead story right now, and tomorrow we will all be hearing about what Mr. Zuckerberg has to say to Congress. My general attitude on this, I'm not going to get into a big tirade about privacy, and we've all heard this from multiple sources, but I just wanted to kind of lend you a little bit of advice when it comes to dealing with companies like Google and Facebook and Windows. Of course, you don't have a great deal of control over what Windows takes from you, since when you agree to the EULA, when you install it or activate Windows, you basically give them permission to look at any of your data and change anything they like and do whatever they want to do with it. But when it comes to Google and Facebook and web-based services like this, my motto has always been, do not put anything up in the cloud or on a web page that you wouldn't want the entire world to see. And if you follow that, then you don't have to worry too terribly much, unless you're dealing with a situation where that web page gets hacked and they get your personal information. And unfortunately, if you want to participate in the technological revolution of the 21st century, that's a risk that we all have to take. So I do realize that there are some folks out there who say, no, we shouldn't be using any of these services and we should be seeking open source alternatives, and that's great, but the truth of the matter is you got to go where the people are. So this is why I maintain a Facebook page dedicated to the EzeeLinux community, and this page has done nothing but grow. We are well over 4,000 followers so far. However, what I have done in my own personal space is I have limited my Facebook usage way down these days. I have a very small circle of friends and family, and that personal page is completely locked down, and I am backing off on my participation in groups as well. Not that I plan to shut down any groups that I'm currently the host or the administrator of, but I'm just not going to be participating too much in those groups, because I have noticed that the participation from group members has gone down as well. Facebook is definitely going through a period where a lot of people are reevaluating their use of Facebook, and whatever your decision is fine with me. The reason why I wanted to point this out is because we are a presence on Facebook at EzeeLinux, and we will continue to stay here as long as it is viable as far as being able to control and moderate what happens on the page, and that, you know, if there's ever a major security breach or something like that that would affect EzeeLinux directly, then it may go bye-bye. Who knows? It's kind of like the way it is with YouTube right now as well, which is a whole nother video, because YouTube is coming under fire. A story that broke today about YouTube is that they are going to be sued for tens of millions of dollars by an organization that is claiming that they're breaking our law here in the United States, which says that below a certain age that they have to make sure that people can't see certain content. I'm not really up on all the details on all of that, but you know, YouTube has been under fire lately for a lot of things that they've done. I've heard that they're losing revenue, and of course we're on YouTube right now, so we'll see how far this goes and where this next huge lawsuit that is going to be making news in the weeks to come is going to go as well. It should be very interesting to see how Google deals with that in the YouTube community. So there's a lot going on right now, and the mainstream media has really latched on to issues that we've discussed on this channel and throughout the Linux community for a very, very long time. I think this is actually a good thing, and hopefully some good will come of it. So wanted to talk about that right up front. Moving on to some really fun news related to EzeeLinux. I had the opportunity to record a show with Kevin Gallagher. He has a wonderful mainstream television show which appears on a couple of cable systems in the state of Connecticut, centered around the Danbury area, called Time Out. And this show has been on since 1996. And he's had some really interesting guests on. He's got a YouTube page that is up that pretty much has every episode that he's done since 1996. And if you just go through and look at all of the really interesting people that he's talked to, it was a real honor to be on this particular show. And it runs about a half hour, and it was tremendously fast. And so we are planning on maybe doing more of these somewhere down the road as well, and I would encourage you to go take a look at it. I'm going to have a link to the video that is posted on the Time Out webpage, and you can also come to EzeeLinux.com, and the link is in the news section here. It'll probably be the second one down by the time you get there. And this was really fun because I have done a few interviews since I started working this project, and probably the ones that I really like doing are the ones that are to a mainstream audience. I really feel like that in the Linux community, when we're talking about Linux and we're trying to get the word out about it, that a lot of the time we are preaching to the choir, because people who are into Linux already watch these videos, and it's kind of becomes like mutual admiration society, and we all pat each other on the back. But really what I like to see is if I can get the word out on some other venue, some other type of media somewhere that has mainstream exposure. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out as time goes by, and like I said, we're going to do another one of these probably in a month or two, and I will share that when we do it. You can check the first one out. I thought I did okay as far as interviews go. Of course, when you're doing real broadcast television that has time constraints, real time constraints, then that becomes an issue. And I kind of felt like I was kind of, I don't want to use the word rushed, but I just kind of felt like didn't have the rhythm of it, but it came off pretty good. And Kevin was very happy as well. So that was a nice experience. Do check it out. That is Time Out with Kevin Gallagher, and you can check out his YouTube page as well. Shifting gears yet again, we're going to talk about configuration files on your Linux system, and I'm hoping that this particular segment of the show is going to be very useful to those of you who are just coming to Linux so that you get some idea of how this all works when it comes to your personal files and settings and where they are stored and what goes on with them. So we have a terminal up, and I also have the Nemo file manager available for us to play with. And I have kind of upped the resolution of my videos a little bit, so we can do 16 by 9. Did 16 by 10 for a long time, so the print might be small on some devices. We're going to really be doing a lot of the looking in the terminal with very large print, but I did want to bring up the file manager here because I wanted to show you how you see what's in your home folder to start off. And that is, you need to look at your hidden files. In Unix and Linux, a hidden file has a dot in front of it, and we call them dot files or dot directories because if they have a dot, generally speaking, you're not going to see them. So to see them in pretty much every Linux file manager out there, it's the same key, little keystroke combination shortcut, and that is Control and H. And if that doesn't work for whatever reason in your file manager, then you can just look in the menu, I guess, and somewhere along the way you can see the hidden files and directories. And if you do that, you're going to find out that there's a lot more files in your home directory than meet the eye. So here's my home directory when that feature is turned off. So I'm having it hide the configuration files that are in dot folders and dot direct. Folder and directory is interchangeable in this case, gang, so I'll probably say both, but we have dot directories and dot files. So if I've got that turned off, then you see the stuff that's just in my home directory that all my files live in. There you go. And go back over here, and now you see that there are a lot more directories and a lot more files than meet the eye. And these are different configuration files for programs on the system. So with that in mind, let's jump back over to a terminal. We can take a more granular look at how this goes. So the way the Unix and Linux system works, we keep user-specific data away from everything else in its own special place. So let's see how that works. So if I list the root directory, this is the beginning of the file system, you will see here that we have a bunch of system directories, and then we have a directory called home. Every person who has an account on the computer will have their own personal directory within the home directory. And on this machine right now, the home directory lives on a separate hard drive. So it's completely separated from the system. There is a hard drive here that is holding the Linux system itself and another one for home. So if we list the block storage devices, you'll see there are 2 drives in this machine at this point. So if we jump over here and we list the home directory, you'll see that we have a directory in there called Joe, and there's another one called Lost and Found at this point. The Lost and Found directory is something that you will see in the root directory of any file system, partitions on a drive or separate drives, and that is something that the system uses to repair the file system if something should go wrong. So that's what that is, but you'll see that we have a user directory here called Joe. Now when you log in to your user account and you open up a terminal or you open up a file manager, you are automatically dumped into your home directory. This is where you always start off. So if I print the working directory using that command, you'll see that we are in /home/Joe. And the home directory is represented by a tilde. Just that right there. That little weird funky thing that's above the exclamation point on a standard US keyboard. So we can jump around to another directory. We can go CD, let's see, let's jump into temp like that. And if I want to represent home, I can just do that and use the tilde. And that's my home directory, so it brings me back. I can also just type in CD from another directory. So if I jump back in, type in CD, that's a shortcut to bring you back to your home directory. Now, I show you all of this because I just want you to understand that the home directory is very important, because this is where all of your personal data lives. So if we had, let's say, 4 accounts on this machine, and each user was using Google Chrome, we don't have to install Google Chrome 4 times. Google Chrome actually lives in a directory called USR. So it would be under USR and then the bin directory. So if I do that, and we list all the storage, we should see somewhere in here a link to Google Chrome. All of your, most of your programs here that are non-system programs live in this directory. So somewhere on the long, long list is Google Chrome. As a matter of fact, why don't we make that a little easier and use some terminal knowledge to list that. There we go. So there it is. Google-Chrome is the name of the program. Google Chrome, by the way, is actually installed in another directory called opt, and that's where most proprietary software goes. But even if a program is installed in another directory, there's usually a link to it here in USR/bin, because that directory is where most of the shared binaries live. System binaries live in bin and sbin. We won't get off into all that, just trying to make you understand what's going on. But it's only installed once. So where are the configuration files for Google Chrome? Well, let's see if we can find them. So we're going to list the home directory again. And this time I'm going to tell it I want to list everything. I'm using the A. And the A tells the ls program, hey, I want to see everything, even if it has a dot. Now you'll notice here that we have .config on this list. So let's jump in there real quick. And now we're listing that directory. Well, look, we have a directory in there called Google Chrome. And if we would jump into that directory, we'd see that we have a whole bunch of configuration files in there. That is your Google Chrome profile, and that's where all of your personal information that pertains to your settings, bookmarks, and everything that has to do with Google Chrome, even the plugins that you have installed and extensions for Google Chrome, they're going to show up right here. So if you take this directory and you copy it elsewhere, and then you go to another system, and you copy it back into the same place under .config, and you open Google Chrome, all of your files, or all of your settings in Google Chrome, all of your plugins, they're just going to be there. And then all you would probably have to do if you use the sync service is to reconnect to the sync service, and bam, you're done. So this is a really good thing to know. So let's move back to the home directory one more time, and we'll clear the screen. By the way, I'm using Control-L to clear the screen. And let's just jump in here and take a look at the different configuration directories that are here. We'll talk a little bit about what they do one by one. Okay, so just in the home directory, you're going to see config, and you'll see local, and then you're going to see some of your software in here as well. So if we stop over here, like for instance, here's your bash history. These are all the commands that you've typed into the terminal. And then we have your bash rc file, .bash rc. Well, that's the configuration for your terminal. It controls things like your prompt, and if you wanted to add any aliases or open up any programs, let's say like screen fetch, then you would add them to that file. You could edit that file to do that. And then the next dot file or dot directory we see is cache, and that particular directory holds all of your cached thumbnails. Google Chrome uses that to hang on to things that it caches. If you run Firefox, stuff goes in there. There's a lot of programs that take advantage of the cache, so that's where they're caching things. That next one has to do with another program. And you can see that we have all kinds of configurations in here. Some of the stuff you probably already recognize, like for instance, here's gconf, which is the GNOME configurations. The Cinnamon desktop in Mint is based on GNOME. And then we come down here a little bit, we got grsync. There's a program that I like to use, and that's a graphical front end for the rsync command, so all of my settings are in there. And then we come on down here, we have Mozilla. That is for Firefox, and if you have Thunderbird running, it might put something in there, but in this case I'm not running Firefox, and Thunderbird doesn't seem to use that. Nano is an editor. The nv.nv here, that's the settings on my NVIDIA video card. And we also have the NVIDIA settings RC file, which has some extra information in it. There's my personal SSH directory that has the local keys for my account. .ssr is the screen recorder. .thunderbird is the mail client. I have not actually set up Thunderbird in probably 2, 3, 4 years, because what I do is I keep a copy of this directory right here, and if I should have to reinstall my system or I want to move it to another computer, then all I do is copy that directory in. When I open up Thunderbird, it asks me if I want Thunderbird to be the default, and it's got all of my email settings in there, including my address book and any plugins that I'm using for Thunderbird. They're in there as well. And there are many other configuration files that you can learn about in the system. So a lot of your programs are going to be putting their configuration files in .config, which we have already looked at. Let's jump in there one more time and just kind of talk a little bit about a few of the things that are in there. So we will list the storage, and you see that we have Google Chrome, which we have already discussed. MC, which is Midnight Commander. That's the terminal program I featured in the last video. Pix, that's the photo editor that comes with Linux Mint, so my settings are in there. VirtualBox settings are in here as well. Rhythmbox is, well, actually, is that in here, or that's somewhere else? I think it is. We'll look at that in just a moment. HTOP is another program that I run. Now, where this stuff goes is up to the developer of the program. So, for instance, if I just CD here and clear the screen, make it easier to see, I'm just going to list all the stuff here in the home directory yet again. You're going to see that I have a program on here called Asunder, and you'll see that we have like 4 different configuration files. We've got .asunder there, which is a directory, and then some extra stuff that it sticks out here. What is Asunder? Well, that's a CD ripper program. And so the developers of Asunder have decided that they're going to throw some files in there. These are normally text files, and you can go in and edit them. So if you look up the documentation for your program, it should tell you where the configuration files are stored, and it should also tell you what you can do to change how that program runs by editing those configuration files directly with a text editor. So real quick here, let's take a look at what's in the local directory. So when you go here and you list that storage, you always see share. It's always here. So we'll just jump into there. And now you see we've got more configuration. There's some pretty important stuff in the local directory that you really need to pay attention to, because these are some configuration files that if anything happens to, you might have a problem. So once again, you see that we've got one for MC. Some of the configuration is stored in here, obviously. Rhythmbox, some of the configuration is stored there. Rhythmbox is one of those programs that stores its information in a couple of places. So Rhythmbox has here in this directory that's in here, this is your playlists, and if you have internet radio stations that you have bookmarked, programmed in, or podcast information, whatever you use Rhythmbox for, it puts it here. Some of the configuration is stored in the cache, like if you have configured the view of the program, like whether you want to see album art or not, a lot of the different settings, they go in there. So if you just grab this one, you'll get all your playlists, but you'll have to reset the thing when you go in. And this is what I'm talking about, looking up the documentation. But one of the real important ones that's in here is key rings, right there. Now, this is where your security keys are kept for your account on your desktop. And if your desktop is a GNOME-based desktop like Cinnamon is, or kind of works a little bit like GNOME, like XFCE does, then this is a really important directory to hang on to, and you want to make sure that you have backed up and you want to copy back in, because if you don't have that, then for instance your Google Chrome account may not recognize that it's you if it goes to sync, because it doesn't have the key and the key ring. If anything happens in here, this is where you have to go in and change things as well. So you can look all you want to. It will not break anything to take a look at these files. Just be careful that you don't delete something, because then you might open up a program and you'll find that some of your settings are gone. I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about that, because all of the information about your account is in here. And if you keep a backup of your home directory with your personal data and your settings, then you can reinstall the Linux system and pretty much get back to where you were when you started. As far as settings for the entire system are concerned, well, they can be pretty much any number of places, but the main place that they go these days is the etc directory, etc. And this is where your configuration that is global is concerned. So what you do in here affects all users. If you want to change anything in here, then you're going to have root privileges to do that. So a lot of times if you have a problem, they will direct you to go into this etc directory and search for and change a file. And as you can see, there's a lot of settings in here, a lot of different things to look at and talk about. I'm not going to jump too deep into it for this particular video, but I'm just going to point out that like you will see here, that we have the SSH directory, which is in here. This is where the keys for your system are stored, and SSH configuration. So this is a directory that even if you're not going to like snapshot the entire system, then you might want to back up. We also have a directory in here for MC. That's put some configuration data in here. You have your hosts. There's too much to go into here, way too much, but you may have to go into your etc directory at some point and edit a file to get something to work, or you may need to create a file or remove a file. Most of the time, the settings, of course, take care of themselves. If you're using a graphical desktop, this is all handled by the point-and-click graphic applications. But once in a great while, especially if you're having an issue with the system, you may be directed to change something in etc. And some of the videos that I've posted that are aimed at more advanced users, we take advantage of things like the cron program. So you'll notice here that we have, let's just jump in here and take a look very quick. So if we go to cron dot, we'll look at weekly. Let's do that right. cd cron dot weekly. We jump in here, clear this real quick, and we're going to list everything that's in here. You'll see that we have a bunch of scripts. Now, these are jobs that we need the computer to do once a week, and a lot of this stuff is set up by programs. One of the things that's really interesting here is this fstrim. So if you have a SSD installed in the machine and you're worried about whether you need to maintain that, run the trim command. No, you don't. It's already set up once a week. The system will know that it hasn't done it in 7 days, and it will turn around and do the trim in the background, and you won't even know it's happening. So I use this all the time. This is the Anacron scheduling system with Debian and Ubuntu, and many other distributions have it set up already. Most distributions I've looked at have it set up already. And all you need to do is learn how to write these little scripts, and if you know how to do it, then you can do your own thing using cron. And let's go back to etc real quick here. Oh, well, why don't you type it correctly. cd/etc is correct. There we go. So if we ls and then we do cron and a star. And a star, he said. There it is. Oh my goodness. Hang on, folks. We're having a dyslexic moment. There we go. Yay! Okay, so you'll see here that we have directories in here. We've got cron hourly. That means the machine will actually do something once an hour. Cron monthly, cron weekly, and cron daily, and it shows what is in these different directories. So every day your system does this. All that stuff runs at some point during the day. If you shut your system down at night, then this will happen pretty much as soon as you boot it up, about maybe 5 minutes after you boot up. And most of these little maintenance scripts only take a couple of seconds to run. Then we have cron hourly, and we have cron monthly. And you see I've added a script in here called EzeeClean, which it just basically goes through and trims the cache as far as the installed programs are concerned. Does a couple of other little things. That's all that does, and it does it once a month, and then we have some weekly stuff. So all kinds of configuration on your system. And the beautiful thing about Linux, it doesn't hide anything from you. And you are free to look at any of this stuff, and if you're brave enough, you can configure it to do anything that you need it to do. So that is a look at configuration files and how they work on the Linux operating system. Thank you for watching the video. We're going to be doing another one here real soon. I'm not sure what we're going to be doing it about. Of course, we are looking forward to the release of Ubuntu. We are also looking for the release of Linux Mint Debian Edition 3 coming up sometime soon. And I'm sure once that happens, we're going to have a whole bunch to talk about. Ubuntu 18.04 LTS. Less than a month away, gang, before it becomes official. So definitely going to be taking a look at a lot of Ubuntu-related stuff coming up a little bit later on this month. Your feedback is always welcome. Please be sure to give EzeeLinux a like on Facebook, and thank you for that if you're still using Facebook. Also, check out freedompenguin.com for lots of really cool stories about Linux and Linux-related content from many different contributors, including myself. freedompenguin.com, run by the great Matt Hartley, and always something interesting going on at Freedom Penguin. Do check it out. And be sure and check out EzeeLinux.com for more about the EzeeLinux project, and on there we have the contact page where you can send me a message directly if you should so choose, and it would be greatly appreciated. So thank you once again for watching. We will be doing it again real soon.